So this will not be purely about wireless, it's about security. But security should be on the mindset of every wireless engineer, and security is heavily dependent on cryptography. We have some security promises. Every vendor promises to have a great security, to do everything right and so, but these promises not always hold true. One example, Telegram. I think many of you use it. I use it. They promise to have a better security than most of the messengers on the market. But at least there are a couple of cryptographers that have doubts about it. Other things. Some promise to have military-grade encryption. But what is military-grade encryption? It could be. It's AES-256. Great. But very likely it's just a buzzword. We have seen many security fails in the past. Very often our security did not work because of implementation bugs or other things, like Cisco trying to get rid of the MD5 best hashed passwords. They wanted to build a new system based on PBKDF2, SHA-256, sort of 80 bits and 1000 iteration, which would be great. But due to a bug, they forgot PBKDF2, they forgot the salt, and they forgot the iterations. And based on that, the stored passwords were less secure than the MD5-based ones. Luckily, everything here was solved very fast after that. Or randomness. We need much of randomness so that an attacker cannot know or predict what we are doing in our cryptographic operations. And on Debian Linux, some time ago, there was a bug that this randomness was not given. Not as bad as in this comic, but also not much better. Then we have design decisions that our application developers and protocol developers do. For example, for our secure transmission, we typically want to have confidentiality. We get it through encryption. And we want to have integrity authentication. We get it by calculating a message authentication code over our data. And if we have two functions for this, they can be combined in different ways. When in the early 90s, Netscape developed SSL, they used a mechanism named MAC then encrypt. We built a message authentication code over all the data, and the data together with the MAC gets encrypted. The developers of SSH used a different approach, encrypt and MAC. The data gets encrypted, but the MAC is built over the clear text data and sent. IPsec did it the third way, encrypt then MAC. The data gets encrypted, and over the encrypted data, we built our message authentication code. Later, cryptographers found out that the way encrypt then MAC is the best of these threes, and security evolved for the other protocols. Today we have extensions to TLS. We have extensions to SSH that also this encrypt then MAC can be used in these protocols. And by the way, MAC then encrypt is also used in a specific way with our CCMP. Then we have different modes of operation, how we transfer our data from a plain text into a ciphertext. And one of these is electronic codebook. We never use it. It's only to show how bad it can get. But we have an input, our plain text, we have a key, we operate on our block of data, and we get a ciphertext. But each operation is individual. And if we have two plain text of the same data, like a white pixel, we have the same ciphertext on the right. And our little tux is easily spotted on the ciphertext on the right. When we are using cipher block chaining, which is quite common nowadays, we have more input. We have an initialization vector at the beginning, and we feed the output of the first operation into the second. We won't get high throughput with that because it's a serial operation, but at least we see that our little tux and the ciphertext is not visible anymore. Another mode is our counter mode, which we are using also in CCMP. We have our input, a nonce, a counter, put it into our operation. We have the benefits of the cipher block chaining and some different things are going on here, some benefits we have to the other modes, but this is one of the typically better usable modes than at least electronic codebook, never used, and cipher block chaining. Today, cryptographers agreed that we should use an authenticated encryption with associated data. That's the most modern form. We can encrypt and authenticate, integrity check our data, and we can add additional data that gets authenticated, but not encrypted. And the Galway counter mode is the most prominent implementation of that. We use it for MACsec, where we want to have highest speed so that we can encrypt our 100 gig links, 400 gig links, and so on. We use it in TLS, IPsec, wireless gig, and also WPA3 enterprise. Then we should always know what a cryptographic solution is designed to protect against. One example, and many probably will laugh about me now, but when I started to dig into wireless security, I already knew this. Key exchange for IPsec security associations. We have an exchange, we have a Diffie-Hellman, we get our keying material, and we are protected against an active attacker and also against a passive attacker that knows the pre-shared key. And whenever we are talking about pre-shared keys, Benjamin Franklin should come to mind. 3 can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. So we should assume there could be someone that have our pre-shared key. And with this knowledge of IC version 1 at that time, or IC version 2 today, I looked into WPA. I looked at the handshake and thought, oh, how do they achieve the same, this protection? I looked again, how do they do it? I looked again and I thought, no, they don't. It was never designed to protect against an attacker, a passive attacker who has a knowledge of the pre-shared key. But luckily, it's 2019, WPA3 is approaching, and now we have an additional handshake and a similar, sometimes slightly better security than IPsec has since 20 years. That's all.